Hello, everyone, and welcome to this presentation. I am Isaac Rodriguez-Chavez, the Senior Vice President for Scientific and Clinical Affairs at ICON PLC. I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to be here with all of you today. I will be discussing the expansion of clinical trials, the Toolbox, to support rare pediatric disease research using decentralized clinical trial approaches. Historically, there has been a series of challenges created by traditional clinical investigations connected to the access of participants to this type of trials, the participant retention, the data quality integrity, and the integration of the data. All of these solutions have now been overcome by the implementation of decentralized clinical trial solutions. There have been a series of adoptions of decentralized clinical trials that go before the COVID-19 catalyzing event. From 2014 to 2019, for instance, we have seen 7% of adoption or compounded annual growth rate of DCTs. That was catalyzed to about 77% during the COVID pandemic, but decentralized clinical trials are here to stay. After COVID-19 and for the next 10 years, the expectation is that these trials really will continue growing and being adopted by multiple sectors. Here we have what is happening with the pediatric decentralized clinical trial solutions. And as you can see here, in pink, there is a trend up for the implementation of decentralized clinical trials in high-income countries. And that is remarkable and emphasized in the last 3 years. That is in comparison, for example, with the adult population that is shown here in green color. When we look at the different therapeutic areas, we will see that there is an increased adoption of decentralized clinical trials in multiple therapeutic areas, including metabolic diseases and genetic diseases, as you can see here at the very top of the chart. Now let's look at trends that are influencing the implementation of decentralized clinical trials. And for that, we need to assess the market size or the compound annual growth rate for key sectors, not only for decentralized clinical trials, but all the others that are influencing the implementation of DCTs across jurisdictions. All of those sectors are connected to digital medicine tools that are enabling the implementation of DCTs in multiple therapeutic areas and for multiple populations, including pediatric rare disease populations. Along with that is cybersecurity, and you can see that all of these sectors are poised to grow for the next 10 years. How can we combine all of these technologies to expand the toolkit that is supporting pediatric rare disease populations and clinical research? So here we have a take on that. First of all, we can take a look at this from the metaverse standpoint that represents knowledge in all fields, and that is the three-dimensional or 3D network of interactions that happens between individuals following different digital approaches. Concentric to that in levels of complexity and going down is the digiverse, or what I call the digiverse, that is connected to the biomedical field and really represents that innovative universe in which the combination of all of these technologies can happen in ways that are creative to satisfy the needs of that clinical investigation for pediatric rare disease. So we can think of combining 3 elements or 3 components of the technology or digital medicine, or 2 components of digital medicine, or just a single DCT that is enabled by a digital health technology, for example, a wearable device. All of this is predicated by having a technology ecosystem that is customized and adapted to the needs of that specific trial. Let's look at the different factors that will be influencing the design and implementation of DCTs for pediatric rare diseases. and they are all listed here. I will be discussing each of them and give you a little bit of information about these factors. From the scientific standpoint, scientific and medical standpoint, we have the technology, as I said, the technology ecosystem that is customized and that has to be verified, validated, justified, and make sure that it's usable for the population that is going to be engaged in this DCT. Wearable devices are key for conducting and collecting data that is important for the success of the clinical investigation in many instances. So well, for rare diseases and rare pediatric populations, it's really important to keep in mind that we have a whole spectrum that is very heterogeneous in terms of the development, the maturity level, and the emotional needs that these individuals have. In consequence, the selection of, for example, a wearable device is a major item that needs to be taken into consideration when developing this technology ecosystem and customizing it for that specific trial and for this kind of populations. The same goes with the medical factors that are influencing this kind of trials. We have to keep in mind that there has to be a customized pediatric medical safety monitoring plan that will be put in place so that we can actually obtain information in regards to possible adverse events, so that we can conduct telehealth visits with the patients, supporting and in support by the family members or the caregivers. And we need to collect the meaningful, necessary information so that we can record the progress of the clinical investigation while we are maintaining the safety of the participants. All of this is predicated by implementing patient-centric approaches. There are equally important factors from the strategy and from the operational standpoint that are going to influence the design and the development of these kind of trials for rare disease pediatric populations. All of these factors are shown here, and they start by developing the right protocols, keeping in mind that there are multiple things to take into account which are connected to the factors that I am discussing here. This is not to retrofit a traditional clinical investigation with a DCT solution, but thinking proactively about what can be done in terms of decentralization, keeping in mind the patient centricity approaches, the remote approaches to enhance the convenience of these children and their families or caregivers. Quality control and quality assurance are equally important for the success of any decentralized clinical trials, as it happened with any traditional or clinical investigation. There has to be training and documentation of the training of the specialized personnel that is going to be proficient in handling and managing this kind of pediatric populations in rare diseases. Evidently, there will be audits and there will be inspections, as there might be in any other traditional or clinical investigation. There is, and there continue to be, importance in terms of the regulation and the compliance with the regulations. However, there are challenges connected to it because there are not harmonized regulations across the globe. So there has to be regulatory intelligence to understand how different components of decentralization can be deployed across multiple geographies. Legal factors are equally important. We are dealing with children and pediatric populations in rare diseases. We need to be mindful of the legal rights of these individuals, the protection of their data, the privacy and the confidentiality of these children, as we do for any other population. Fairness is equally important, and the fairness factors influence decentralized clinical trials. Equity, diversity, and inclusion are patient-centric activities and are one of the value propositions of decentralized clinical trials, including in rare pediatric populations. For instance, the FDA has issued guidance documents, and the EMA is equally supportive of equity, diversity, and inclusion in this kind of population, in this kind of investigations for not only pediatric rare populations, but for any clinical investigation. FDA, for instance, also has published a guidance on the ethical considerations about the inclusion of children in clinical investigations. So children are really important in clinical investigations, including modern trial designs such as decentralized clinical trials. Ethical factors are as important as all the other factors that I just mentioned for multiple reasons. As you can see here, there has to be a value for that clinical investigation, and there has to be a mitigation of the risk, and there has to be an independent review conducted, as well as the mindfulness of the rights of these individuals, the correct selection of these individuals according to inclusion and exclusion criteria, and evidently there has to be an informed consent, and all of this has to be in favor of the benefit of the clinical investigation, in this case a DCT, for the individuals that will participate in this clinical investigation. In conclusion, decentralized clinical trials are here to stay. They really expand the toolkit that represents clinical research and investigations using modern trial designs. Decentralized clinical trials have multiple benefits and offer multiple value propositions, including enhancing equity, diversity, and inclusion, breaking geographic barriers, enhancing the opportunity to retain individuals by enhancing the activities surrounding the ecosystem where these individuals live, optimizing data collection, data processing, data reporting by utilizing electronic sources, leveraging the standard healthcare system in the ecosystems where these individuals live. In conclusion, decentralized clinical trials offer multiple advantages and benefits compared to traditional clinical investigations, and they are here to stay. I would like to thank you all for your attention. Thank you.